Ohmies, it's the 8th of November, almost Christmas time. I'm here, Mark11, to host this interview of the week, and with me, as ever, is my co-host Dropkickdarren. How are you going, Dropkickdarren?
I'm good. We have policy gigabrain Sh4dow with us today. The backbone of OlympusDAO. How are you going, Sh4dow?
Thanks, guys. I'm very glad to be here. Doing good today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. There's so many questions that we kind of want to start with. Is anything kind of jump out at you, Mark?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I know Sh4dow is this shadowy figure who hangs out in the policy channel of the main Discord, sort of dealing with like the endless questions of all the kind of smart and dumb Ohmies alike that come along and want to know about the protocol and kind of the policy team and the bond control variables and all that business. But before we kind of get into that stuff, I'd really like to know Sh4dow's background. So kind of what you were doing, like what's your sort of career, and then when you got into crypto, and then we'll lead up to kind of how you discovered OlympusDAO and go from there.
So for some reason, I really like talking about how I started in Olympus. I don't know. It always brings joy to me to talk about how it all started. As for my other background, my background is mainly in finance and economics. I stumbled into crypto the same time as many people, I think, in the 2017 bull run. Got pretty wrecked when the bear market came, but not it wasn't a substantial amount. It was just a big lesson. Also, along with that came some negative opinion of crypto. I think a lot of people felt that at the time when that bear market started, and I am very glad that after that, when DeFi summer started, I really had to somehow fight myself to get into it, full force again, to really not have that perception that, this is a scam. It will just be all the 2017 bull run all over again. And I think that's something very important in crypto, to be able to open your mind and not be burdened, with what happened in the past, and think of every situation as a new thing. I think that's very valuable. It's really hard to distinguish the two and not constantly be negative about some things.
Yeah, not carry your trauma with you, kind of.
It's there was so much that happened that we felt the need to rename the space as DeFi to kind of get rid of that negative connotation. But yeah, I do agree. There's definitely a big kind of negative connotation with the word crypto in general. That's interesting.
How did you get back into sort of crypto, into DeFi? What was it that sort of pushed you over the edge? What was the sort of token or project that was kind of I've really got to get back in now?
I can't remember a project in particular, but it was mainly just Twitter, to be honest. When you basically fear of missing out. As silly as it sounds, basically it's just fear of missing out, and taking the plunge and saying I want to be in the next bull run. Because in 2017 it was fairly already too late, right? To be the one that came out on top in that bull run.
Yeah. But
basically I just got the feeling I want to commit to this, see this through, and if it goes good, great. If not, who cares? It will be a scam, and then I'll move on with my life. And yeah, so far it's paid off.
So what projects did you get involved in? Or were you kind of just sort of putting a bit of money in, seeing what's happened? Did you join a community or anything like that?
No. Olympus is the first project where I actually joined the community.
Wow.
Before that, it was
cool.
all on the surface. Olympus is the first. I mean, I joined the community, channels, but Olympus is the first project where I somehow felt the need to contribute, and do something.
That's interesting. So what was that what kind of sparked that desire to actually like jump into the community and like be like, well, I have these kind of skills, like, and like this system seems like I'd be like best suited to do this. Try and kind of like talk us through what that was like, maybe like when you realized what you could kind of help out with.
Well, like for people who are new to Olympus or not even new at this point, like when Olympus first started, it was just the main Discord, and it was like it was still high for crypto, but it was a small number of people. There was not that many people, especially active in the Discord, and so like it was really a tight knit community, and everybody was cool. It wasn't so fast, it was much slower than today. Like you could have like long conversations at the chat, like you actually knew all the people who were there and stuff. So like it was really a close knit community. And basically, my first contribution was the Google Sheet calculator for staking. There was no resources at that point. Like right now you have like 50 calculators doing dashboards and stuff. Back then there was nothing of the sort. So like I just made a simple calculator that would show how much Ohm you'd have if you just staked and the APY was constant, or you could change the APY or stuff. And like you could just play around with that and see the power of compounding, because that was, believe it or not, even at that point, but it was basically just answering the difference between APR and APY. And yeah, that I used to do that all the time. That was also one of my main contributions, just answering that question whole day.
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask sort of jumping back before that, just so we have the timeline. So you, like, how you discovered it? Like, was it that someone tweeted about it and then you just joined the Discord?
Yeah.
Or
it was Fiskantes.
It's always Fisk.
Yeah, I'm not. I didn't participate in the pre-sale, unfortunately. I saw Fisk's post when there was only a Olympus article on Medium, and I don't think there was a Discord then. I'm not sure. And basically, the article was laying out Olympus in a very complicated way, probably because it was written by Zeus, and he tends to explain stuff like that. And I read through it. Of course, didn't understand it on the first read. And at the end or something like that, there was like a sentence. I can't really remember, but there was somewhere a sentence, the team is anon. And I was like, yeah, no way. I'm not investing in this. Like this won't go well. And then I was lucky to actually see, I don't know, it was like, there was already traction on Twitter. I think there was a post from DCF God as well, where he said like, the Ohmies are still holding like, pre-sale participants are up 50K and they're not selling. I think that's where I saw, and I joined somewhere around the crash, on the first crash in price. That's when I joined.
Good time to get in.
Yeah, very lucky, because I probably wouldn't be, I wouldn't have been patient and waited for it to actually crash. I would just ape in. Yeah. So like I was lucky that the moment I saw it the second time, it already crashed. So I just could take the plunge.
Very good. Yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the sort of being around the community in the early days.
No, it was fun. Like, it was the same as now, just like scaled down by a large factor. Like back then there were also people who were new, who didn't understand anything. There were veterans and stuff. So like it was basically now, but like really scaled down. Like the other thing is there were a lot of questions about Dune, and nobody basically answered them. Nobody answered like they can create a Dune Dash. I didn't know CQL. I don't know if people know that. Like I didn't know CQL at the time, and there were so many questions about Dune, and I was like, I'm gonna try and make this and see what happens. And for like 2 weeks, I tried to make the most basic queries. I'm sure that like somebody who's an expert in CQL, does it as their day job, he can now find like really stupid things in my queries that I didn't change, as I learned, because I constantly build upon the old queries. So I'm sure that a lot of old stuff still is doesn't make sense to experienced people, but it all works. And yeah, so I just spent like a lot of time learning CQL and making the first iteration of the Dune Dash. And from then to today, I spent time building upon it.
Wow, that's actually awesome. It's like everyone that we have kind of interviewed, like that was really early in the community, is like just truly self-made. You know, like they just found something where they're like, well, I'm good at this, and you know what, I'm just going to dive into this and like learn and see if I can like contribute to the community. So that's actually awesome.
So the thing is, like even now I say that like it's not, you know, it's not okay right now. Like we have a DAO, we have contributors, we have processes in the place, and of course people that contribute to the DAO are all paid, right? So, but like there is something in the people who want to do it like proactively and who want to do it for fun, you know, who just want to do it in order to make something. There is something like those people make very good contributors and people in the DAO, like, and that's like a common trait that it's hard to see today when we pay for everything, you know, when we pay all the contributors, it's hard to see who actually wants to, you know, stand out and do stuff for free.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's harder to recognize now that we have that kind of budget per week in the DAO. So, I mean, going off the back of the, you know, now that you're kind of a SQL master, some would say, what's your kind of like first kind of query that you go to, you know, when you wake up, you have your coffee, maybe your tea, if you're not a coffee drinker, what's your kind of go-to like metrics when you're like starting your day off?
Well, I'll have to disappoint people. The first thing I do when I wake up is not look at Dune, but during the day, I definitely, the most commonly viewed query is revenue. Like that's what I watch. Revenue and the breakdown per bond. Like that's definitely something I watch every day. How much revenue each bond brings, or rather like what's their capacity? Do we need to tweak those capacities? The liquidity to market cap ratio, like that's also something we've been keeping an eye on, and that ratio has came back to normal. It caught on to the price. So to the market cap. So yeah, like those two queries are like really important for policy. And yeah, those are the main ones that we monitor day to day because they involve BCV changes, which we do fairly often.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the sort of how the DAO formed. So you just made this Dune dashboard. How did the DAO? Were you like one of the first ones in the DAO server, or was the DAO still on the main Discord, kind of people working away in there? Can you tell us a little bit about how that all started?
Oh yeah. So it was just made by Zeus and the gang, Wartle, Apollo, and Banksy. It was just made by them, a separate server, and I know they comped contributors such as me. They contacted us and sent us Ohm from their wallets, you know, before the DAO formed, although we didn't expect it at all. But once the DAO formed, like they just told people to go over there. We had the departments laid out. Like I think it's pretty much the same departments we have today, minus like some. We now distinguish between backend or something on design, but it's pretty much the same departments. And yeah, it was much slower back then. There were no processes really in place, and there were no Strategos. Like there was not that coordination, that level of coordination. But I think the DAO, as we know it today, formed somewhere in June. That's when we did the rework and stuff, and when we laid out like all the plans, because like the introduction of Strategos is, I think, really what made it all much more efficient, because we have like weekly Stratego meetings where we can, you know, coordinate the activities across the DAO. We have insight into what we're doing, and so it's much easier to like get the high level picture that way and see how we can support the other departments together.
Yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Strategos. Was it sort of people in the DAO coming together and deciding that was sort of the best structure to have these sort of community contributors come in and take on a bit more of a not full time, but like a fuller role in the DAO and taking on that sort of coordination
facilitator role? Yeah.
Yes. I think it's like that for all the departments, at least from the discussions I saw. But I know like that in policy, I think it's in all. I think I can speak in general. It's basically the contributors elected all the Strategos. It was 100% an organic process. Like the contributors in each department elected their Strategos, and it was like, yeah, there was nobody forced people or nobody put us there or stuff like that. Like it was 100% a community decision.
Very cool.
That's awesome. And so I guess the Strategos are essentially these like facilitators, right? If I was a new Ohmie and hadn't heard what a Stratego is, it's just someone who, actively kind of manages over that, department or kind of at least tries to facilitate work being done, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're accountable for it. That's the main thing. Like we're there and we're accountable for it, and like, you can count that we will like do the work if nobody does it, that we will coordinate the other contributors and stuff like that. I mean, it's important. Like you can't have a functioning DAO without something like that.
And accountability is definitely important.
Yeah. How have you found it, Sh4dow? Is it like a big drain on your life? Are you sort of pulled back from other sort of commitments you had to take it on? Does it keep you up at night worrying about sort of how the policy team's going and stuff like that?
It's non-traditional, that's for sure. Like it's a whole day commitment, It's not just for Strategos. I'm sure it's like that for other contributors as well. But like the DAO never sleeps. So like, if you're not in the chat, you miss out on stuff. Then you wake up, then you have to read the chat all over. And so like, it's definitely different than like, a real life job in the sense that you have to be way more active and proactive. But I mean, I love it, honestly. Like it's a noble way to work.
Yeah, it's very good. Do you, what do you tell your friends and family that you work on the new world reserve currency of DeFi?
No, I don't bother explaining stuff. Yeah, it's hard explaining stuff to people that are not in it.
For sure. I mean, a startup is always a good way to put it, or something akin to that.
A project. Like it's a project, and like you don't have to go into details.
Humble as ever. I mean, like, what kind of things do you find like novel about it? Do you kind of find it really interesting how like you said earlier how that like initial thought, you're like the team's anon, it must be a scam. Did you like what kind of changed your mind like about that, and what made you kind of be like, well, it's actually not a scary thing to go anon. If anything, it might remove some kind of barriers when working with people.
Well, in terms of there's a couple of questions. So like in terms of what made me change my mind, it's just seeing like seeing Zeus back then, like he was constantly in the main Discord, like in off topic in general, in questions, doing calls, like. So like when you hear him talk all the time, when you see him type all the time, like, and when you read and hear the things he says, like you realize that, he's here for good and he wants to make this happen. So like that answers why I shifted my mindset and why I realized this was legit. While we're on that, the thing that made me most bullish about Olympus is actually not the mechanism design, the underlying design. It's the DAO. Like when you actually see the amount of work being done and the level of work, like when you see the level of cooperation inside the DAO, the number of contributors, the fact that these contributors like are constantly here, they've been here, like a lot of contributors have been here since the launch of the DAO in June. So like when you see that, like you really can't not be bullish on Olympus. Like it's really incredible to see.
Yeah, we had last week we interviewed each other because we lost track of time and we had to get a last minute guest.
No, it was episode 33
also. About? That's the whole reason. But yeah, I was like, DKD asked me about it, and I was like thinking about like why I'm worried about Olympus, and then Asvi asked us if we'd stick around if there was like a treasury hack, and in the end we like kind of both agreed that actually the most valuable part is the people and the systems in the DAO, and like that's the treasury is just kind of gravy on that, it's just something that can be sort of levered and used for sort of backing the ohm, but then also like it's very handy to have the treasury there and sort of the ohm built up in the DAO to have its value, that you can actually now go and build these really kind of big grand projects, do treasury swaps and all the other stuff. Maybe you can tell us, we can jump forward to Olympus Pro. You've obviously had a big hand in that. Maybe you can tell us about how it got started.
Olympus Pro is like, I'm sure that like somebody who even has startup experience, in fast moving companies, like they would be surprised how fast this all came from idea to realization. So like it started from a DM chat, with, I don't know what's the max for Discord, but it started off as a DM chat. We had a few calls in DMs, and then we basically reached the max amount of people in DMs you can have on Discord. And we realized like we need to make this a channel in the DAO and give permissions and like work on it. And so we like started onboarding engineers, started like slowly pitching it to partners, seeing the reaction. And like basically you just know when you stumble upon something great, the idea was you can do the same thing as Olympus, and all you need to do is like just have a meeting with us, decide everything, give us that 3.3% in most cases fee, and like we'll do all the other work for you. And like so far it's been like a major success for all partners.
Yeah, the Olympus Pro effect. It's been pretty wild. Yeah.
I don't like to talk about price, but yeah, it happened for sure for a few partners.
Yeah. I mean, we've also got our own CoinGecko section, right? Olympus Pro coins. Because it's interesting, right? Because we're at like 15, around 15 kind of protocols that have launched with OP. How do you kind of see it kind of scaling beyond 15 going into like, let's say 100, like optimistically speaking? I mean, we have a lot of demand for it, right? But let's say, we're getting into triple digit, maybe even beyond that. But how do you kind of envision the policy team, managing all these different protocols, like moving forward? Do you kind of envision like this kind of quasi-automated strategy, or do you think, as Olympus develops and as we move to V2, do you think that it will kind of change everything, or do you think, kind of give me your overview of how you view policy to kind of manage that moving forward?
Yeah, so I think, like for now, my idea, like I also lead the data and metrics team in the DAO, and so my focus right now in that team is to focus on building good tools for Olympus Pro. I realized that I've been doing it in Dune for now, but I realized like that we have to make this more scalable. So I'm really working with that team to build the proper tooling, both for the policy team to like, have this better high level overview and, if possible, get alerts on partners bond. I don't think we can make it automated in the contract itself, but we can build the tooling to make it much easier for us. And that's how I think we'll scale. And I also want to build other solutions for partners and for the general public to see how Olympus Pro is performing other than Dune, because I think Olympus Pro has so many nuances that like we've outgrown Dune for Olympus Pro.
That makes sense. So like basically increasing all these different metrics for people to view, and obviously increases transparency as well.
Maybe Sh4dow, you can take us to a policy meeting and kind of maybe you can tell us about how it was at the start, and then kind of how a policy meeting would happen today and what gets discussed and how it's run. That'd be really interesting.
If you have 3 hours of your time, I can take you to a policy meeting. But yeah. Just let me just think back on the I mean, I don't think the length of policy meetings changed since the start. Right now, we also have stand-ups. That's what we introduced, because the regular meetings are so long. We need to do like stand-ups as well, 3 times a week, just to have, shorter meetings where we can talk about the more urgent stuff. Like policy meetings are something else. I've been on a lot of meetings in other departments as well every day, but like policy meetings are really something else. There's so much brainstorming going on in the meetings. Like there's so many ideas that that never see the light, because either we deem them like not possible to execute, or we think of something better. But like it's so much information in every meeting like that it's really overwhelming. When we introduced Strategos, that's when we introduced a formal structure for the meeting, and for policy we right away we introduced votes. So like no decision in policy is made without an internal vote. So you have to have like a majority, and usually votes last for 24 hours. We also introduced time-sensitive votes, and the participants in policy have to write out a detailed explanation of why they voted like they did. And like policy is really, policy also has an application process. You need to fill out a quiz, and you need to like have a history in the DAO or a history of contributions before we let you in, because like policy makes really important decisions either autonomously or in the form of an OIP on the forum. But in either case, like we really hold policy members to a high standard, and that's how it's been since the start. Yeah, since the start of the DAO, like we really scrutinize the members. Which is not to say that we don't welcome new members. Like we for sure welcome new members, but we expect like new members to show an interest, to have shown already an interest in policy. That's why we have the policy channel in the main Discord, so that participants can show their interest and participate in the governance process. And that's sort of a way that we vet new members. That's why we have a quiz, and basically we hold all the people not to gatekeep, but to make sure that the Olympus community, gets the best policy members, because they make really important decisions. And like, I really think that the members in policy, the decisions made there affect the whole community.
100%. So maybe for like a newer Ohmie, maybe kind of that they might not be aware, for example, maybe kind of run us through what decisions can be made internally that Ohmies don't know, that changes on a week-to-week basis, for example, and then kind of give us a run through of like what would need to go to an OIP for the entire community to vote on.
Well, I can tell you right away what we can't change without a vote, and that's the reward rate. So that's the thing I get asked most often. The reward rate won't change without a community vote. What we do change on a not really day to day, but pretty often, is BCV. BCV controls the capacity of the bonds, and it basically controls the emissions from bonding. If you increase BCV, you decrease the capacity. So it's an inverse relationship between the capacity and the BCV. And when you decrease BCV, you increase the capacity. So right now, it's not important. Right now, if we were taking in daily like 5 million in Ohmies SLP, then if you increase capacity by 10%, we would be taking 5.5 million of Ohmies SLP. So that's some of the decisions like that we make pretty often, at least once a week usually. The other thing is we will soon put up a vote. We usually we outline the policy framework in OIP 22, but with the introduction of V2, we will have to have the autonomy to start and shut down bonds, because that's something we will be doing pretty often. That's just how the underlying mechanics of the V2 bonds work. So like that, we will put up a proposal to ask the community for it. Right now, we've shut down bonds for LUSD and OMLUSD. That's just temporarily. It will still be put up for a vote to the community, along with that proposal to give us a bit more autonomy on the bonds. But yeah, we've shut down LUSD because we're pretty content with the amount of LUSD we have at this point. And somebody asked recently in Discord, why didn't we do the same process as with Frax, where we just increase the BCV to a very high number so that you essentially don't take in too much of the asset? It's a very slow process. That's just the reason. Like, it's a very slow process to do that. And because BCV only increases when someone actually deposits into the bond or decreases. So you'd have to like wait for a lot of people to deposit for the BCV to actually tick up to a very high number that restricts capacity.
That makes sense. And then maybe for the Ohmies that are like, well, what are these random numbers for the BCV? So how are these numbers derived? And like, I think maybe some people would like potentially a little bit more clarity on like what the numbers actually mean. Are they actually calculations, and how do they scale to the Ethereum block times, for example? I think some people might be curious onto how they function.
Yeah, so like the BCV basically controls the price of the bond. Like the BCV is important, and on the other hand, the debt ratio is important. BCV is a variable set by the policy team entirely. So like if we don't touch it, it doesn't change. And the debt ratio is used, to control capacity without policy, without policy actually interfering. When the debt ratio is very high, that means you have a lot of debt, because that ratio is debt over total supply. And so when the debt ratio is very high, then the bond price is very high. And that means that the bond won't be profitable to bond. So that automatically restricts capacity. As more people bond, the price becomes higher and restricts bonding. That's just so that we don't like emit a ton every day. It's self-controlling in that aspect. And the BCV is just basically set by us. And so when we increase the BCV, you increase, like keeping the debt ratio constant, you increase the price and make it less profitable for people to bond. And that's how you restrict capacity with it.
So a question that I get asked in the Discord server a lot is, when is the reward rate going to come down? Isn't it going to come down in January? Don't we go down to like some very small APY in January? I don't think that's the case, or at least it won't be the case without a vote. But can you tell us like a little bit about why people might think that, and then if that's the case or not?
Yeah, I came prepared. I have the reward rate proposal. I knew that would be a question. I have that in another tab. So like the reward rate framework that we outlined is just a framework. Even in the framework, it says the reward rate can be changed without a community vote. So some might ask, what's the point of the framework? The point of the framework is to align expectations with the community, that the community isn't surprised because that's been a reoccurring theme in the last two reward rate reductions, is that we propose it, and then the community says they're blindsided, they didn't expect it, they expected the reward rate to be at this level for like a year or whatever. So we outlined the reward rate framework, which aligns the expectations. However, policy still like monitors the market, monitors the emissions, the parameters to see whether we need to propose a reward rate reduction within the ranges in the framework, or maybe whether we need to change the framework as a whole. But in any case, both of those would be put up for a community vote.
Maybe you can take us back to OIP 18. Did you
great times?
Well, I actually think it was like a very, very difficult time for like everyone. It was a hectic couple of days after that.
Extremely difficult. Yeah.
Did you get much sleep? And can you tell us what it was like to be a part of it? Were you worried about the protocol, like not surviving because there was such a big backlash, or?
Unfortunately, I posted the proposal a bit late my time. So when I posted it, I instantly realized it was a mistake to post it at that time, because right after I posted it, we had to have a spontaneous community call because the community freaked out. Then we had the call, and then I spent, I don't know, a few hours more in the chat just answering questions, like usually the same questions over and over again. And then I woke up, and then the first thing I do is check Discord, a million tags, and then I start answering questions again. And like, I know I got DMs from other people saying that like I should take a break and like relax. But yeah, it was a stressful few days, because like I just wanted people to see like that, you know, because price also started to go down. And I just like wanted to explain to people that this is not like a bearish event. Like reward rate reduction is not a bearish event. Like you're decreasing the amount of emissions, the amount of overall emissions from staking. And so like all else equal, it's a bullish event, right? Because less supply on the market, like, you know, all else the same, price will have to go up. Like that's not saying price will always go up on a reduction, but like even in that proposal, I posted a screenshot of the market cap on the previous reward rate reduction. Like the market cap just went exponential, and I posted the same screenshot and said like, this is not financial advice. I am not saying this will happen again, but we don't have evidence that this is a bearish thing. Like if you look at historically, this is a good thing, a bullish thing. So like, don't trade it like that, but we don't have evidence that we shouldn't do it. And of course, after the reward rate reduction happened, the market cap again went parabolic. So like, it's a weird position. Like, you know, when you're kind of sure you're right, like I can't 100% know whether price will go up or down, but I do know that like keeping APY at that level is unsustainable. And if the project is to succeed, we have to reduce the reward rate. And like, it's a really hard position to convince a large number of, you know, because policy is only a small number of people. The majority is the community. And like when you have to like spend time answering the same questions and trying to help them see it your way, like it's really difficult. But like, I'm glad it all came together as planned.
Yeah, we didn't have as many sort of systems to engage with the community either.
Yeah.
Like we could have had Twitter's, like the Twitter spaces, or like Agora TV, or like a podcast to like discuss it and stuff. So I think we'll be better prepared next time. Has anyone approached you and said, I want my next bullish reward rate reduction? Where is it, Sh4dow?
Yeah, has anybody actually asked for the reduction? That's funny.
No, I haven't encountered those cases yet. Maybe. I hope people ask for it next time.
I'm asking. I'm happy for it to happen. Because like really, it's not like you're reducing the rate, but like it's just that's a percentage, but you're actually slowing the rewards, right? So you're getting the rewards at a later date. It's just that's another way of thinking about it, I guess.
Well, the thing is, people in like you also have to like understand that it's something I didn't understand on the first reward rate reduction. Like there are people in crypto, you know, who have no background like in finance whatsoever, who don't understand at all like how it usually functions in the financial system. And what I've seen often is like, because we show the APY, that implicitly means that this APY should last for a year, because it is annual percentage. So like that's some of the reasoning I've heard. While in reality, APY is just a way to express the current yield you're earning. So like there's a lot of stuff that like you have to keep in mind in crypto that, that's usually not there in TradFi somewhere.
Yeah, I definitely see that as being, I wouldn't say an issue, but yeah, that's definitely something at play.
Sh4dow, maybe you can tell us about what you're most excited about for Olympus V2, and kind of how that might affect the policy team and what your responsibilities are and the rest of the contributors in that team, and if it'll affect data and metrics. You'll probably have to be building up some more playgrounds or dashboards, but you can tell us.
So there's a couple of questions again. So for the community, I'm mostly excited about anon bonds, anon payouts for bonds. Like I think that's really awesome to be able to bond and get a payout in anon and not have to do anything, not spend high amounts of gas just to claim your bond. And the other thing is obviously not having to claim, right? That's also annoying. Like having to, connect your wallet every, I don't know how many hours or once a day or whatever, and claiming a bond, and then you miss a rebase and then you have to claim in 7 hours or something. So like some payments are really good, and I think the community should be really excited for it. For the policy,
Sh4dow, will the anon bonds reduce the dilution? So it'll make the sort of treasury capture of the bonded asset more effective. Is that right?
So for the anon bonds, you will. I'm not sure about decreasing dilution because you'll stake them right away. But it will be cheaper for the treasury because if with anon bonds, a discount of 0 means that it is exactly the same deal as if you staked, So like any discount larger than 0 is profitable. Whereas now I am not sure 100% that most people know how to calculate when a bond is really profitable and consider the staking in the calculation. So like in that sense, I think it will be cheaper for the protocol because people will know once discount is higher than 0, then this bond is profitable and you should grab it.
Yeah, definitely. And what are you excited about V2 for the policy team? Does that will it affect you at all?
Bond adjustments are much easier. Like right now we have this very long process where BCV, like I said, like BCV only ticks up or down when there is a new deposit, and we have a limit on how much the BCV can tick up, 2.5 or 3% of the current BCV. And it's a very painful, like, and slow process to execute. Like you have to set a target and an increment, and then it increments by the max amount. And then when this is very complicated, and then when the BCV actually gets higher, so not to your target, but to a higher number, then you can like change the increment again. But then you have to contact the multisig to do it again and stuff. So like it's a really slow process. Whereas the new contracts are much smoother for policy to manage BCV changes.
So beforehand, you had to manually move the needle essentially to get to the target capacity for the BCVs, whereas now it kind of is a more instantaneous process. Does it kind of like is it more kind of snap to the target where you want it to go, for example?
You give it a time period, if I understood correctly. You give it a time period. And over that time period, it will self-adjust. So you don't have to worry too much.
Amazing. And that's to the, obviously, block times as well, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And what does this mean for Olympus Pro? Is that the same sort of improvements will be rolled out?
For now, Olympus Pro will stay on the older bond contract.
And is there anything else exciting in the works that you can give us a little info on, a little alpha leak for the Ohmies out there listening to the podcast?
I just wanted to return on Olympus Pro quickly. So the reason like why we're staying on V1 bonds for Olympus Pro is that partners usually don't have these very, very large changes that we have. And so it's not really a problem to adjust for them, because we set them initially pretty well. And then the capacity changes that we do for partners is usually around 10-15%, which is not hard to do, with this current process. Whereas, with Olympus, we constantly do these very large adjustments for individual bonds. So it's like much more complicated.
Yeah, of course.
And we also do like staked asset payments. For example, Sh4dow uses their staked version of SDT for payouts. So in that sense, like there is no difference. We can do that right now for the partners as well.
Very cool. Yeah. Is there anything else exciting that's being worked on in the DAO that you're bullish on, or anything you're working on personally that you can share with us?
There's always a lot of stuff happening in the DAO. Incubator, okay, yeah, that's public now, so that's not a problem to talk about. Incubator and Launchpad, like I think it is like really important, because like if we want to be the reserve currency in DeFi, we would basically through incubator and programs such as this get into as many treasuries as possible and bring as many protocols into our ecosystem as possible. So like I think that getting involved at an early stage is the easiest way to like build good and healthy partnerships in DeFi.
Yeah, 100%. And then also, I guess, coupled with Olympus Pro, you're kind of distributing out Ohm supply into the general crypto ecosystem as well, which is what you want as well.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously the next often talked about topic is cross-chain, which is really like complicated with the underlying mechanics that we have. But a good step in the right direction is wrapped SOM on other chains, which we have right now. So like if people really want to get exposure at a lower price, they can get it right now, right? So like I'm also glad the community has that option if they want to go that route.
Yeah, people love that on Avalanche.
Yeah, and like I'm also excited about Arbitrum specifically. Like I think bonds themselves, will be kind of a super interesting environment for bonds to kind of flourish, or at least like I think it's a low transaction fee environment is perfect for the kind of bonding mechanism. I don't know if you feel similarly, or
I do. I like bonds because technically you don't even you wouldn't need bonds on every chain, but I like bonds because they keep people engaged. Like bonds are fun. Bonds are like an active strategy, active management strategy, which yield a bit more, but require more of your time and attention. And those people who are willing to commit to it earn higher yields than just staking. So like that's what I like about bonds. Like it keeps people around and staring and engaged with Olympus.
Aren't bonds just the actual market rate for what you're buying, right? Because it's a marketplace where you're coming and saying I'm prepared to wait 7 days and expose myself to that risk. And then the other side of the market is saying, well, yeah, that we're prepared to give it to you at a discount because you're taking on that risk. So it's just creating a market, and that's actually the true market price.
Bonds are just like, well, both are true market prices. Bonds are just like a secondary market, where you involve the cost of being illiquid as well, while the bond is vesting.
Yeah.
And we've had protocols ask for much higher, much higher vesting periods. And like for now, I would be down to experiment, but I think that if you can support it, like logically you would be, the bonders would be demanding a lower price, or rather a higher yield, for being illiquid for a longer time. So if your current liquidity can sustain it, I would go with the lower vesting terms and earn the same liquidity per dollar or per token. So yeah,
it's very interesting, isn't it? Because it'd be fun to run the experiment.
I have a little thought experiment. Again, this is purely speculation from my end. What if Olympus, in moving into V2 is potentially trials different vesting terms for the bonds, and then those bonds are kind of in like a fixed income market, yet they're actually liquid, for example. So like something, I don't know if you're aware, but Fiat DAO is kind of has come along, and they're kind of offering this liquid fixed income setup that I think could tie quite nicely into Olympus V2. I was wondering if that you kind of potentially could see something where there are longer term vesting bonds, and whether those longer term vesting bonds could potentially turn into kind of liquid assets as well.
So for Olympus longer term bonds, there's a few things. Like the number one thing is anon payouts. That was very important for longer term bonds, because without anon payouts, you kind of blur the actual cost. Like, is it staking? Is it not staking? Is it a premium over stake? You blur it, and I'm not sure people would understand really what yield they're earning on a longer term bond. The other thing is, you guys have read in the V2 article that bonds may become tradable in the future. Like, that's something for engineering to think through. But yeah, a bond, like, you could basically trade your current bond that's vesting on a secondary market.
Liquid, yeah, that's very cool.
Excited. Yeah, I think it'll open up so many interesting.
That's in the article, right? I didn't alpha leak something. Okay.
It's in the article. Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because I was like, I think there's so many different avenues that you can explore with, like, having a secondary market for bonds, and then being longer vesting periods. It could also be interesting.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about working with Abipup?
Yes. Abby, like those meetings that I mentioned previously, those 3 hour meetings. Like Abby is a very organized person, and he's usually the one taking notes during those meetings. For people not aware, Abipup is also Stratego in policy, so we co-lead policy together. We're the two Strategos for policy. And so, like, he's a very organized person and keeps everything in line and ordered. And like, I really value like the stuff he does. All around, he's like a pleasant guy. Very nice to work with.
Yep, cool. That's fine.
Yeah, it's always. I mean, like, you've been kind of working and been in and around Olympus since June, or even like early May, mid-May potentially. What has kind of surprised you the most?
I've been around since March.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
I thought you got in just after that initial crash. I forget when that was.
No, that was when staking launched. I have been around since the first day of staking.
There you go, a true OG.
Yeah. Well, I'm the index. Well, I'm the guy. I'm the guy. If you staked one ohm, then you would now have this much. Yeah.
Well, considering you're the index guy, what has kind of been the most valuable thing besides the fact that your index is now 30? What has been the most valuable thing that you've kind of taken away from being a part of the Olympus community, getting involved in the DAO? Would you have changed anything, and kind of what has just surprised you about the whole experience thus far?
It's a really cool experience. Like seeing Olympus grow to what it is today. Like when I joined, it was like 25 million market cap, something around that. And like when you work on it from that point to today, like that's incredible. That's an incredible feeling to have like been involved with something that's grown to a 4 billion market cap. Like, I don't know, like it's just like a very accelerated version of, I guess, traditional companies, and you get to see all the working in the DAO, like since the start, you get to see all the forms the DAO took, how we changed. Like first we wanted this organizational structure, then we changed it to this, then we realized why this worked. you get to see all those things you read about in the books, like why this thing is better than this, like why this management structure is better than this, why this style of leadership is better than this. And you get to experience it all in like a very fast way. And I think that sort of experience is like, it's priceless. It's really priceless to get to experience it all on yourself through your work in the DAO. And there is no doubt in my mind that like, even if people like join the DAO or something, spend some time in it, contribute, and for some reason they don't want to work in crypto or something, I have no doubt in my mind that like this experience is very valuable in traditional finance or any other job in real life.
That's interesting. Then I'm going to have to send this to a bunch of people that I know in the traditional space and make sure they get to the end of this podcast so they can hear that.
Basically, that's what I think. It's a very accelerated view into the evolution of companies. You get to experience the whole evolution of companies in a span of like a few months.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like what would happen over like a 5-year time horizon happens in 5 months, right?
Because I don't buy the opinion, that like DAOs like are changing everything. Like the companies are very old. Like companies have evolved to this stage where they are at today through years. Like the way companies are organized today is because they've evolved this way for years, and because this is the most efficient structure or something. However, like today in companies, obviously you have individuals also who are trying to, retain power for themselves. So I think you can't just go and discard those years of evolution of companies and say, okay, we are the smartest, we know the best way. I think we should take like the best things you can learn from companies and their organizational structure and move it to a more equal and basically move it to a more equal DAO, which allows for social mobility. I think that's the most important part. You have to also realize that not all people like want to be, quote unquote executives. We don't have executives in the DAO. It's like a flat structure. We have coordinators, but like not all people want to, spend, 12 hours in the DAO. But the idea is to let those people who want to spend 12 hours in the DAO, let them, prosper. Let them play a more important role. Yeah.
It's definitely really important to have those line roles, right? Is having the avenues for anyone and everyone to be like, well, I can contribute an hour a week and I can contribute an hour every day or 10 hours every day, right? So I think I do agree with you. I think we can't disregard, all the good things that companies do have. There's definitely so much to learn. I think, like you said, take the good things and very much use, what's unique about crypto and kind of smart contracts in the blockchain space in general, and kind of potentially work to automate some things that otherwise wouldn't need maybe someone in between, so you can actually do more interesting things rather than all having all this additional management and HR. If we can automate those things, then it might be.
I think it's definitely efficiency, right? Because Eric Voorhees, when they came and did their AMA Shapeshift for Olympus Pro, he was saying that, we can hire someone from France and we don't have to go and like find out what all the French employment laws are and get a working permit for them to come and, work over here, or working rights in the US, that you can just access talent wherever it is in the world. And it's kind of like, being an Uber driver, you work whenever you want. And if you don't work, you don't work. And that's fine. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah. And think about that. Like if you offer, you don't have to offer the best. I think in terms of DAOs, like I haven't seen a DAO that offers like the stuff we do. And a DAO that is structured as we are. And so I just think like from the perspective, like if we offer these benefits, if we offer working in a 3-point-something billion DAO, if it's fun, if everybody is cool, if everybody is polite to each other, if everybody works together, like why wouldn't we attract the best talent who is interested in working in a DAO? And unlike in traditional, in the real world, you don't attract the best talent in your country, you would attract the best talent in the whole world. And so from that perspective, like I really think that's awesome. And the DAO is constantly working to like make onboarding easier, to attract better talent. And there is always work to do. Like I really encourage anybody who like wants to make it in crypto, who wants to work in crypto, who wants whatever, to just join the DAO, introduce themselves, and like I'm sure there will be something for you to do.
Yeah, but word of warning, you might come in and think you're spending like a couple of hours a week, and then like DKD and I now work full-time hours producing like podcasts, work in the partnerships team, hanging out in the general Discord, answering questions. It's like so fun, and so much is happening, and you get to deal with so much cool stuff that it's very difficult not to like get totally engrossed in the DAO. I think.
It's hard to be away. It's hard to be away.
It is 100%. It is.
Yeah.
FOMO.
Well, it's the crazy thing is like, even though there are, some, because we're growing at a ridiculous rate, contributor wise, like there are some, bottlenecks in maybe having more like open avenues for people to like jump into and do work here and there and easily access tasks, for example. But I think at the end of the day, there's just, like you said, Sh4dow, there's nothing that has been this like, low barrier of entry to start contributing, right? Which is like wild, because you realize you can do so many little different things, and you can find your kind of like ideal setup in what you can do day to day.
Yeah, like it's really incredible. Like there is no interview, no CV, no nothing. Like I think that's also a problem for some people. That we've encountered that early. Like I think that's also a problem in some people. Some people aren't proactive and like to be guided more. And in the DAO, you have to somehow be proactive and stick out, because of the whole working environment in Discord, and because of the fact that we don't like, you don't have a job that you're assigned for when you join. There is no interview. Like you have to be proactive and like ask for things, or even better yet, to do things. Like that would be my main advice for people. Just do things. Don't even ask for direction. Like you don't have to be a dev. You don't have to, you don't have to have those skills. You can write up a research report on a partner, why you think it would be a good treasury asset, or how do you think this would be a good partnership with Olympus. Like you literally don't have to have anything. Like you can go to a partner Discord and see some way they can collaborate with Olympus, come back to Olympus, explain that, contact the partner. Like there's a lot of things to do where you really can prosper.
Yeah, I can't wait to see like sort of the financial sort of companies, the TradFi, like sending sort of people to do internships or like secondments to like go work in a DAO and to like broaden their experience. I think that'd be something pretty exciting.
They might never get them back.
Well, why would you go back?
Yeah.
I would kind of agree with you there, Sh4dow. I think we've touched on so much over this last hour that really kind of appreciate your time. I think my last kind of question, at least, is like, what's the biggest misconception about Sh4dow? What people misunderstand about you and what you do in around the DAO, do you think?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know.
I can tell you.
Maybe that I seem blunt
us,
or
Mark.
chat sometimes, but like it's just how I talk and type. Like
People think, I would say, that Sh4dow isn't like very supportive, because I just think that you like see future problems and you want like people to be aware of them, rather than sort of you're not very encouraging. But
I'm a big skeptic.
Helpful.
yeah, I'm a big skeptic, and like I like to play devil's advocate often, and so it can sometimes seem negative, but like I just like to be prudent and make sure like we're covered from, from all aspects.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like text-based chat is also
that's the problem.
Yeah. It's like you can't gauge emotion like half the time, and like I don't know. If just coming from my perspective, if I have someone who's the head of policy, I want kind of direct contact, right? I want someone who's super direct with their words. I don't want someone using floral language, trying to beat around the bush kind of thing. So,
you leave that to Agora.
Yeah, we do that. We do that best. We talk crap all the time. That's our job.
I wouldn't say so, but okay. I think you guys are doing an awesome job. I think that bluntness is what essentially got me the Stratego role. Yeah, that bluntness and that skepticism of ideas.
Very important to have in the policy team. Well, I think we can leave that there. Unless you had anything extra you wanted to share or tell the community or people to thank that you sort of think should take the opportunity to do so. Not that you have to.
No, I'd like to thank you guys for having me on. I think this is the first podcast I've ever been on. So
it's our pleasure.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Like, you guys are great hosts.
No, thank you for again taking the time out, and it's awesome to really profile the people that like really have created the premium at which Ohm trades at. So again, it's a pleasure.
And if you wait and see, Ohmies, what the DAO is cooking, it's gonna blow your socks off.
Just join the DAO. It's that easy.
Yeah, Eli 5, the TLDRs, just join the DAO, and also be blunt, and you might
not too blunt.
Not too blunt, because then Sh4dow will be blunt. Right.
Then
back.
You'll become Stratego,
and then you'll never leave the DAO, and you'll be working 12 hours a day. All right, Ohmies. That's Monday the 8th. Oh, no, you do it, Mark. I think I got the date wrong.
Remember the time you told everyone it was Wednesday and it was Friday?
Oh, people found that funny. So for context, Sh4dow, we did our last podcast, and I said it was like a Wednesday when it was a Friday, and I switched the dates up like 3 times and found it really funny. When I listened to it when I was editing it, it's funny.
I'm pretty sure most people in crypto don't know what day it is. So
no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
It's all one day now. Thanks, Ohmies. We'll catch you for News of the Week next week, and we'll have Spaces on Thursday, and we hope to do a special one this Tuesday with Nugan and Wallamai Pine, perhaps DKD, for our Asia listeners, and we're still finalizing the hosts for the European-based one, but we're going to get that up. That Spaces up and running soon, so we can cover Ohmies all across the world. We'll catch you next week. See you guys.
Thanks for listening.